Okay, so we're just going to dive right into it. The first half of this lecture is going to be based on just observing consciousness, really what it is, how we can make sense of it. So what is consciousness? The specifics of consciousness are not really completely understood. We're not super aware of what it is. It's sort of this black box thing where we could see the effects. We're not really sure the causes. We're not really too sure of the inner workings. But what we do know can be pretty useful, just to evaluate human behavior. So consciousness, basically the best way we can define it is that it's our self-awareness, our awareness of our environment. And obviously those levels of awareness are going to, they're going to fluctuate throughout the day, throughout your lifetime, sometimes naturally, sometimes not naturally, and we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. Consciousness is affected by alertness and arousal. We can pretty much measure consciousness by the level of alertness and arousal. So when arousal is impaired or when it falls too low, the individual is going to experience a loss of consciousness. So sleep, for example, is a loss of consciousness, and that usually happens periodically and naturally, but it happens when our arousal falls to really low levels. So part of the brain that's responsible for controlling arousal is known as the reticular formation. So if you look at this diagram to the right over here, this is sort of just a cartoon diagram of where the reticular formation is, which is over here, kind of upper by the brainstem. So I'm sure, as you know, the older, sort of more conserved structures in the brain are usually closer to the brainstem. So those usually those are usually structures that are involved in, breathing, balance, arousal, sexual functioning, those sort of basic primal survival needs that we have. Those are usually mediated by structures that are close to the brainstem. And as you move farther out, closer to the cerebrum, those sort of association areas and those areas of higher processing are the more evolutionarily recent structures that are sort of specific to more recent organisms like humans. So although consciousness is necessary for human survival, our bodies naturally experience periodic reductions and losses of consciousness. So during sleep, for example, we can experience a loss of consciousness that can be categorized into stages based on the brain activity recorded. So EEG, if you look at this picture to the left, it's called EEG. It's also known as, fully the name is electroencephalography. So by strapping these sort of electrodes to an individual's head, you can sort of record the brain, the wavelengths that are coming out of the brain. And we use the different types of waves that come out at different points in the night to categorize sleep into multiple stages. There are actually 4 stages of what we call NREM, non-rapid eye movement sleep. And then there is one stage of REM.